let's speak to our political editor, Mzwandile Mbeje. You were there asking the president various questions, Mzwai, as he said. Is this refreshing? We don't often see the president taking questions from the media live on our channel or any other channel.
Oh yes, Francis, and of course, I mean, just outside, I think as you can see, he's still standing there, chatting to his staff. Basically, he was, I think, joking, saying we are asking him difficult questions, but of course, this was an opportunity really to try and pose those questions. Remember, Francis, this commission had been initially set up to only last for 6 months, but we saw the chairperson of the commission, Judge Zondo, going to court to ask for an extension, and then after that there were so many more extensions, and you did hear what his commitments were when he was receiving that report from Judge Zondo. I think the takeaway from this, Francis, is that in the next few hours, this first part that has been released will go online. So, which means South Africans will know exactly what Judge Zondo has done. And remember, as you have correctly said, this is part one of the report. So there will be 3 parts. So in this part 1, there are 3 volumes. So what we will see, perhaps tonight or even early tomorrow, is the evidence and the findings and the recommendations around the SAA and SA link, and the issue of the new age and how the advertisement happened on government, and then, of course, the issue of SARS. So these are quite important. Insofar as him committing to taking action, he said he will wait for the entirety of the report, which will be produced, which will be submitted, I think, to Parliament on the 30th of June. He actually said even before that. Remember, this first report today, part 1, end of January, it's part 2, and then end of February, it's part 3. And then that's when part 3 will then summarize everything insofar as evidence is concerned. So the president does say he will really pay special attention to what is reported or what's on the report. So it's very interesting for us to see what sort of action, especially after reading for ourselves. By the end of tomorrow, we'll be knowing exactly what that what that part 1 says, Francis.
Yeah, a lot of journalists will be up all night. A lot of people in this country with an interest in the findings, and it affects all of us, in fact. So, I mean, you mentioned that earlier legal case where an NGO tried to prevent the president from receiving the report, but I think the concern was always that the president would wait and see to what extent he was named, implicated in anything, if he liked the findings or not, that he may in fact sit on the report. The fact that he's releasing this without knowing the contents beforehand himself, releasing it within hours, makes that entire legal argument and the argument of many who were suspicious null and void, I guess.
Oh yes, one of the key aspects of what he said, Francis, as he takes leave, I'm sure you can see, is that he wants absolute transparency on this. When we said the NGO had basically said, Mr. President, you had been fingered, you were one of the people who was mentioned. So he said, where there would be areas where there are conflict of interest, he will step out of the way. I don't know what that in real term means, but he basically said where he is conflicted, and I'm sure you can see he's living now. Francis, he said he will step out of the way, and as he steps out of the way, literally out of the union buildings, so it will be interesting really to read that report, because if he says he's committed to transparency, which he appears to be by obviously making this report available within hours, so it's the action, Francis, that will be taken following this. Yes, insofar as acting on the entirety of the evidence, it may not be easy because he'll still wait for other aspects. But I think South Africans would want to see that this is the report, according to the former public protector. This is the commission which was supposed to have said only 6 months, but maybe we did not know the enormity of the work that was involved. So as a result, it ended up sitting 4 years. So what has that 4 years done? You heard the president say that this is, as far as he's concerned, this is the start. So clearly, that is what South Africans will be watching out. Is this the start?
Mzwai, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I see it, the president himself has not been implicated in serious claims of state capture, but he was involved in the war room dealing with Eskom, and we now know at the same time there were allegations of state capture happening in Eskom. So the question has always been, how much did he know when he was deputy president previously? Is that correct? Just outline his own engagements with the state capture inquiry.
Oh yes, maybe we'll have to wait a little bit longer, because this first report, Francis, would I think focus only on SA-Link and then the New Age and of course SARS. So where perhaps there were people or witnesses who spoke about him, we don't know. That relates to Eskom. So it will really be very interesting. So I know we've been guessing, I know we've been suspecting what could be, what will. So it's just a matter of months, actually. It's in less than 2 months. We should be able to answer some of those questions, particularly that relate to him. Remember, the second report or the second version of the report will be released at the end of this month. And then the third one, which is the final, at the end of February. So clearly, as soon as the report is released or is handed over to the president, he releases it, as we would know, in the next few hours. So those questions, Francis, will then be answered then.
A lot of questions about the involvement of the former president, Jacob Zuma. Of course, his name has come up frequently at this inquiry. Justice Zondo battered that. But it's interesting how the president uses his words. He says things like, we are ending an era of state capture. But he has never implicated former President Jacob Zuma. He has never said, I believe he was involved in state capture. Do you agree with me? He's often watching his words. This is a balancing act for him, possibly until in black and white there are findings against Jacob Zuma.
Oh yes, Francis. And I think given perhaps the fight, I would call it the fight, between the former President Jacob Zuma and the acting Chief Justice, the chairperson of the Commission, I would say somehow deprived us of an opportunity really to hear all sides. Remember, I think one of the things that the former President said was that I am willing to come to the Commission, but not when it's chaired by you, Mr. Zondo, because we have issues dating back the years. So clearly, that application, you and I know very well, was dismissed, so which then led to the events of him being jailed, and of course we know what happened in July. So, but the thrust of the point I'm trying to make, Francis, is that we were somehow deprived of some of the insight that could really answer some of the questions, because if someone like the former president was the one who was the head of government and head of state at the time, and some of those allegations are leveled against him, so it would have been interesting to really hear what he would have to say. But yes, as I've said, that fight between the two gentlemen so deprived us of that opportunity. But of course, as you and I know, he has paid the price by being jailed for that. So in terms of the evidence that will come from these, one of our colleagues did try to put that question to the judge himself, to say in his findings, is there anything to do perhaps that points right to the union buildings? That's where we are, meaning the former President Jacob Zuma. So he wouldn't respond to that question, saying we have to read the report if he indeed said something about a former president. So we'll find that in the report.
All right, thank you very much. Political editor at the SABC, Mzwandile Mbeje.